The day I watched Jackson Reeves bleed in the dark, I understood why some secrets are worth dying for. Mine almost killed me at 14. His was killing him at 18. I never meant to find him. That Tuesday in October, Westbrook High had emptied out after final bell, leaving behind that strange quiet that makes schools feel haunted. I needed the weight room not for strength training, but for the heavy bag in the corner where I could practice my Muay Thai forms. 3 years of therapy had taught me breathing techniques and positive self-talk, but nothing calmed my anxiety like the rhythm of controlled strikes against leather. The main gym doors were locked, but the side entrance through the equipment room stayed open for athletes. I slipped through, my footsteps silent on the rubber flooring. That's when I heard it, a sound that didn't belong. Not the clang of weights or squeak of sneakers, but something wet and desperate, like someone trying not to sob. My body knew danger before my mind caught up. Every muscle tensed, ready to run. But the sound pulled at something deeper than fear. I recognized that particular flavor of pain, the kind that eats you from inside while you smile for the world. I crept toward the sound, past rowing machines and weight racks, until I saw him. Jackson Reeves, quarterback god of Westbrook, king of the social hierarchy, sat hunched in the far corner where the emergency lights barely reached. His left sleeve was rolled up, and in his right hand, a razor blade caught the dim light like a tiny silver fish. 3 cuts already decorated his forearm, precise parallel lines weeping red. He was going for a 4th when he looked up and saw me. Time did that thing where it stretches like taffy. His eyes, those famous green eyes that made sophomore girls write poetry, went wide with pure terror. Not the kind of fear you feel when you're caught cheating on a test. This was existential. This was everything I am about to shatter fear. I knew that fear intimately. Neither of us moved. The razor trembled in his grip. Blood ran down his arm in thin rivers, dripping onto his $200 basketball shoes. His mouth opened, maybe to threaten, maybe to beg, but no sound came out. I could have done so many things. Taken a photo, called for help, run away, and pretended I'd seen nothing. Instead, I reached into my backpack, slow and careful like approaching a wounded animal. I pulled out the travel pack of Band-Aids I always carried, a habit from my own dark days, and set it on the floor between us. Then I turned and walked away. I didn't run. Running would have made it worse, would have turned me into prey in his mind. I walked steady and calm, even though my heart hammered against my ribs. Behind me, I heard him scramble, heard the clatter of the razor hitting the floor, but he didn't follow. That night, I lay in bed staring at the glow-in-the-dark stars my dad had put up before his deployment. The same stars I'd stared at 3 years ago, trying to find reasons to keep breathing. I thought about Jackson's blood, how it looked exactly like mine had. How pain doesn't care if you're popular or invisible, rich or poor. It finds us all. I should have known he'd come for me. Wednesday morning arrived wrapped in Denver's October chill. I parked my beat-up Honda in the far lot where the other scholarship kids and transfers claimed spots, away from the BMWs and Teslas of Westbrook's elite. The walk to the main building usually took 5 minutes. That morning, it felt like crossing a minefield. Everything seemed normal at first. The usual clusters of students, the smell of overpriced coffee from the cart near the entrance, the distant thump of bass from someone's car. But as I walked, conversations stopped, heads turned, phones appeared. By the time I reached my locker, I understood. Taped to the metal was a photo heavily edited but convincing. It showed me lurking behind a pillar, appearing to take pictures of Jackson at football practice. Across the top in red marker, "Stalker Alert." Oh my God, is that her? I heard she's been following him for weeks. Creepy transfer girl thinks she has a chance with Jackson Reeves. The whispers hit like shrapnel, each word carefully chosen to wound. I peeled the photo off my locker, noting the Photoshop work. Whoever did this, probably Jackson's teammate Dylan, who ran the school's underground Instagram, had skills. To anyone who didn't look closely, it seemed real. I'd been invisible for nearly 2 years at Westbrook, careful cultivation of nothingness, of being background noise in everyone else's story. Now, suddenly, I was visible in the worst possible way. Raven Fitzgerald. I turned to find Skylar Mitchell, head cheerleader and Jackson's girlfriend, flanked by her usual entourage. Skylar was the kind of beautiful that looked effortless, but probably cost thousands in maintenance. Perfect blonde highlights, perfect white teeth, perfect French manicure. But something in her eyes didn't match the mean girl script she was supposed to be playing. "Stay away from my boyfriend," she said, loud enough for the gathering crowd, but her tone was off mechanical, like she was reading lines. "Whatever sick obsession you have, get over it." I met her gaze, searching. There a flicker of something, not anger or jealousy, but fear knowledge. Did she know about Jackson's arms? I started. "Save it." Skylar cut me off. "Everyone knows about your creepy little photo collection. You're sick." She turned and walked away, her squad following like synchronized swimmers. But as she passed, so quiet only I could hear, she whispered, "Don't let him see you break." The warning chilled me more than any threat could have. By lunch, my social media had exploded. The fake photos multiplied like a virus. Someone had even created a Raven the Raven meme, me with badly photoshopped black wings, lurking behind various pictures of Jackson. The comments ranged from mean to genuinely disturbing. Someone should teach her a lesson. Restraining order time. This is what happens when you let just anyone into Westbrook. That last one stung more than I wanted to admit. They weren't wrong, I didn't belong here. My dad's military benefits and my dead mother's life insurance had barely covered tuition. I was here on academic scholarship, a diversity statistic in their pristine world. I ate lunch in my car, doors locked, watching the rain start to fall. 3 years ago, I would have been planning my exit strategy, pills hidden in my jewelry box, razor blades taped behind picture frames. But therapy had rewired those impulses, replaced them with others. Strike the bag, count breaths, find one thing, just one thing worth staying for. Today, that thing was curiosity. Why was Jackson Reeves, who had everything, cutting himself in the dark? The campaign escalated with military precision. Thursday brought dead roses in my locker, black ones, with a note, "For your funeral, stalker." Friday, someone posted a fake suicide note supposedly written by me, confessing my obsession and threatening to hurt myself if Jackson didn't love me back. The school's gossip Instagram ate it up. Attention seeker. Bet she's one of those girls who cuts for attention. Someone should check her arms, LOL. That comment made me pull my sleeves down even though my scars were old and faded. Barely visible, unless you knew where to look. The irony wasn't lost on me. They were mocking me for something their golden boy actually did. Dante Washington was the first person to speak to me like I was human since Tuesday. I was hiding in the computer lab during lunch, trying to delete the worst of the comments from my social media, when he appeared at my shoulder. "This editing is trash," he said, pointing at one of the fake photos. "Look at the light source. Completely wrong angle. Amateur hour." Dante was Westbrook's resident tech genius, the kid who'd already sold 2 apps before senior year. He wore the same black hoodie every day and had hair that defied gravity. More importantly, he didn't travel in packs. "Does it matter?" I asked. "Everyone believes it anyway." "Truth always matters," he said, adjusting his glasses, "even when people don't want to see it." He paused, studying me with the kind of intensity usually reserved for code. "You know, I have access to the school's security footage. Timestamp shows you were in AP Literature when this photo was supposedly taken." Hope flickered, small but real. "Why would you help me?" He shrugged, but his ears went red. "Because I've been watching you for 2 years, not in a creepy way," he added quickly. "Just, you're always alone, but you don't seem lonely. You're quiet, but not weak. And when Madison Barrett had that panic attack last year, you were the only one who knew what to do." I remembered that day. Madison hyperventilating in the hallway. Everyone filming instead of helping. I'd recognized the signs and talked her through it. Got her to the nurse. I didn't know anyone had noticed. "Plus," Dante continued, "I know what it's like to be targeted by Jackson Reeves. He bullied you, freshman year. Nothing this elaborate. Just standard nerd harassment. Stopped when I threatened to release his browser history." A small, satisfied smile. "Turns out, our golden boy has a thing for depression forums and self-harm support groups." My blood turned cold. "You knew, suspected, but knowing and proving are different things." He pulled out his phone, showed me a folder labeled Insurance. I document everything, every cruel act, every abuse of power. Someday, someone's going to need evidence. Looks like that day might be soon. The bell rang before I could respond. As students flooded the hallway, Dante disappeared into the crowd. But he'd left something on the desk, a sticky note with his number, and 2 words: "Stay strong." If this story reminds you of someone who fought their battles in silence, who carried pain no one else could see, remember that strength isn't always loud. Sometimes it's the quiet kid who refuses to break. Monday arrived like a storm front, Spirit Week at Westbrook, when school pride reached cult-like levels and the social hierarchy went into overdrive. Theme days, pep rallies, and sanctioned bullying disguised as tradition. I'd survived 1 Spirit Week already by becoming invisible. This year, invisibility wasn't an option. The roses had been a preview. Monday's locker gift was a doll, one of those old porcelain ones from thrift stores. Someone had drawn tears down its face with black marker and pinned a note to its dress. "Crazy girls play with dolls." Right. I was photographing it for evidence when they surrounded me. 7 of them, all varsity football players, moving with the coordinated precision of a practiced play. They formed a semicircle, blocking any escape route. Other students in the hallway suddenly found urgent business elsewhere. Even the freshmen knew when to disappear. Jackson stood at the center, and for the first time since Tuesday, we made eye contact. He looked different in daylight, hollow somehow, like someone had scooped out his insides and left just the pretty shell. The sleeves of his letterman jacket covered his arms, but I knew what lay beneath. "Heard you've been telling people lies about me," he said. His voice had that dangerous quiet that preceded violence in movies. In real life, it was worse. I haven't told anyone anything. True, I'd kept his secret even as he destroyed my life. Dylan saw you in the counselor's office. Also true. I'd gone to Mrs. Rodriguez, not to report Jackson, but to ask about resources for self-harm. Generic question. No names, but in Jackson's paranoid state. Every move I made probably looked like betrayal. I didn't. Shut up! The mask slipped for just a second, showing the terrified boy underneath. You think you know me. You think because you saw... He caught himself, aware of his teammates listening. You don't know anything. Mason Brooks, defensive tackle and Jackson's best friend since elementary school, shifted uncomfortably. Jax, maybe we should... Maybe we should what? Jackson rounded on him. Let this psycho keep stalking me. Let her spread her sick fantasies. The word sick hit like a slap. He was projecting so hard you could have shown movies on him. Tomorrow, he said, turning back to me, costume day. You're going to learn what happens when you mess with the wrong people. And they left in formation, Jackson leading, the others falling in behind. Only Mason looked back, and in his eyes I saw doubt. Not enough to help, but enough to hesitate. In the ecosystem of high school, that counted as courage. I spent the rest of the day in hypervigilance mode. Every corner could hide an ambush. Every bathroom visit felt like Russian roulette. The worst part was the anticipation knowing something was coming, but not what or when. It's a special kind of torture, waiting for the other shoe to drop. Mrs. Rodriguez found me in the library after school, pretending to study while actually planning escape routes. Raven, she said, sitting across from me. How are you holding up? Mrs. Rodriguez was one of the good ones. Mid-40s, silver streaking her black hair, eyes that had seen too much but still held compassion. She was the only counselor who'd lasted more than 2 years at Westbrook, probably because she'd learned which battles to fight and which to survive. I'm fine, I lied. She pulled out a folder, my name on the tab. Your teachers have noticed some social disruption. Want to tell me what's going on? I could have told her everything. Could have reported the harassment, shown her the photos, maybe even hinted at what I'd seen in the weight room. But I knew how this worked. Jackson Reeves wasn't just a student, he was Westbrook's shot at state championships, at alumni donations, at prestige. His family's name was on the new science wing. And me, I was nobody. Worse than nobody, I was a problem. Just high school stuff, I said. It'll blow over. She studied me for a long moment. You know, I've been at this school for 8 years. I've seen a lot of kids come through, all fighting their own battles. Some battles are louder than others. Some are fought in silence. She slid a business card across the table. Not the school's mental health resources, her personal cell number. Sometimes, she continued, the bravest thing you can do is ask for help, even when you think you're protecting someone else. After she left, I stared at the card. She knew, maybe not the specifics, but she knew something was deeply wrong. The question was whether anyone would listen, even if I did speak up. That night, I found myself in the garage, working the heavy bag until my knuckles ached through the wraps. My dad had installed it when he taught me self-defense after what happened when I was 14. You're not learning to fight, he'd said then, steady hands guiding my stance. You're learning to survive. Sometimes that means knowing when to strike. Sometimes it means knowing when to run. But most importantly, it means knowing you have the power to choose. Strike, run, Choose tomorrow. I had a feeling I'd need all three. Tuesday, costume day. The hallways looked like a movie set had exploded superheroes, zombies, princesses, and everything in between. The normal rules of appearance suspended for one day of sanctioned chaos. I'd chosen simple black jeans, black hoodie, cat ears, basic enough to blend in, nothing that screamed victim or target. But as I walked through the main hallway after second period, I realized it didn't matter what I wore. They were waiting. This time. It wasn't just the football team. Jackson had recruited others, cheerleaders, basketball players, even some theater kids who probably just wanted to belong. They lined both sides of the hallway like a gauntlet. Some held phones, ready to record. Others just watched with that hungry look crowds get when they smell blood. Jackson stood at the far end, blocking my path to English class. He wore a king's costume crown, cape. The works. The irony was suffocating. "Look, everyone," he announced, voice carrying over the hallway noise. "The stalker's dressed as a cat. How appropriate, always lurking, always watching." Nervous laughter rippled through the crowd. The smart ones started to drift away, sensing this was escalating beyond normal Spirit Week fun. But enough stayed, enough to witness. I could have turned around, found another route. But something in me, maybe pride, maybe exhaustion, maybe just being tired of running made me walk forward. "Excuse me," I said quietly. "I need to get to class." "Excuse me," someone mimicked in a high voice. More laughter. I kept walking. 10 feet from Jackson. 5. That's when Skylar appeared, slipping through the crowd to stand beside her boyfriend. She wore an angel costume, white dress and wings that probably cost more than my car. But her face was tight with something that wasn't anticipation. "Jackson," she said, quiet enough that only those closest could hear. "This is enough." He turned on her so fast she actually stepped back. "What?" I said. "This is enough. Let her go to class." The crowd held its breath. Skylar Mitchell didn't defy Jackson Reeves. They were Westbrook royalty. The couple everyone either envied or wanted to be. But here she was, standing between us like a designer-dressed shield. "You're taking her side." Jackson's voice cracked on the last word. "You think this freak—" "I think," Skylar said, louder now, "that we're about to cross a line we can't come back from." She knew. In that moment. I was certain. She knew about his arms. Maybe had helped him bandage cuts. Had kept his secret while watching him spiral. And she was trying to save him from himself. But Jackson was beyond saving. The paranoia and pain had twisted together into something poisonous. He grabbed Skylar's wrist, not hard enough to hurt, but enough to move her aside. "You want to know what we do to stalkers at Westbrook?" he asked me. "You want to know what happens when you can't mind your own business?" He reached out, faster than I expected. His hand caught the edge of my hoodie, yanking hard. The fabric pulled tight against my throat before the zipper gave way. But he didn't stop there. His friends moved in. Hands grabbing, pulling, pushing. Someone got hold of my skirt. The sound of tearing fabric cut through the chaos like a blade. My skirt, the one my mom had sewn by hand before she died. The one I'd worn to her funeral, split along the side seam. The crowd's laughter turned sharp, hungry. Someone yelled, "Pull it off!" But in that moment, something strange happened. Time didn't slow down like in movies. Instead, it crystallized. Every detail became hyper-real, the smell of too much body spray, the buzz of phone cameras, The tremor in Jackson's hands as he reached for more fabric. My body remembered before my mind did. 3 years of Muay Thai kicked in like muscle memory. I dropped my weight, pivoted on my left foot, and broke free from the grab. My elbow came up in a perfect defensive position, not to strike, but to create space. The crowd stumbled back, surprised by the sudden movement. "She's gonna fight. Get it on video! Jackson! Watch out!" But I didn't attack. Instead, I stood there in the center of their circle, my ripped skirt hanging awkward, my breathing steady. I could have hurt them. Every stance, every angle I saw the openings. Jackson's throat exposed, Dylan's knee vulnerable, pressure points and soft targets everywhere. I chose not to. "Come on then," Jackson shouted, his crown tilting sideways. "Hit me! Show everyone what a psycho you really are." That's when I saw it. His sleeve had ridden up during the struggle, fresh cuts, still scabbed, cross-hatching the older ones. The crowd couldn't see from their angle, but I could, and he knew I could. "I'm not going to hit you, Jackson," I said, loud enough for everyone to hear. "I'm not going to give you what you want. What I want." He laughed, but it came out broken. "You have no idea what I want." "I know you want to hurt," I said, "because hurting others feels better than hurting yourself." The hallway went silent. Even the phone cameras seemed to pause. "Shut up," he whispered. "I know because I used to do the same thing." I pulled up my own sleeves, something I'd never done in public. The scars were old, faded to white lines, but visible. 3 years ago, after my voice caught, after someone hurt me in a way that made me feel like I'd never be clean again. Gasps rippled through the crowd. Someone lowered their phone. "I know what it's like," I continued, taking a step toward him. "To smile all day and bleed all night. To feel like you're drowning in your own skin. To think the only control you have is how much you can hurt." "Stop." His voice cracked completely. "Just stop?" "I know what it's like to lose someone and blame yourself." The words came out steady, even as tears started down my face. "To think if you'd just been stronger, better, more perfect. Maybe they'd still be here." Jackson's face crumbled. The mask he'd worn for 2 years since his brother's death finally shattered. "You don't know anything about Cameron. I know he was captain of the debate team. I know he loved poetry and played violin. I know they called him soft, weak, gay. Whether he was or wasn't didn't matter to them. I know he fought alone because he didn't want to burden his perfect little brother with his problems. How?" Jackson's legs gave out. He sank to his knees right there in the middle of the hallway, crown clattering across the floor. "How do you know that?" "Because I do my homework," I said softly. "Because when someone tries to destroy me, I want to understand why. Because hurt people. And you're hurting so bad it's eating you alive." The crowd had backed away now, forming a wider circle. Some still filmed, but others had put their phones down. Skylar stood frozen, tears streaming down her face, her angel wings trembling. "He left a note," Jackson said to the floor. "Said he was sorry for being weak. Said he hoped I'd be strong enough for both of us. And I tried God. I tried so hard to be everything he couldn't. Perfect grades, perfect athlete, perfect son. But every night I'd look in the mirror and see him, see his disappointment, see yourself," I finished, "and hate what you saw." He looked up then, and for the first time since that night in the weight room, I saw the real Jackson, not the king of Westbrook, not the golden boy, not the bully, just a broken 18-year-old who'd been carrying an impossible weight. "The cutting started 6 months after he died," he whispered. "It was the only thing that made the screaming in my head stop. Just for a minute. Just for—" He saw his exposed arms, yanked his sleeves down. "And then you saw. You knew. And I couldn't let anyone know. If they found out I was weak like him—" "You're not weak," I said, kneeling down to his level. "You're human, and humans break sometimes. It doesn't make us weak. It makes us real." The crowd stood witness to something they'd never expected. Their king on his knees, their victim becoming protector. The whole careful social structure of Westbrook cracking down the middle. That's when I noticed Dante. He stood at the edge of the crowd, phone steady, live streaming everything. But there was something different about his expression, not the hungry look of someone catching scandal, but the determined face of someone documenting truth. 200 viewers, he called out. 250, 300. Everyone's watching. Jackson. And you know what? They're not laughing. I looked around. He was right. The cruel amusement had vanished, replaced by something else. Recognition. Maybe. How many of them carried their own secrets, their own pain? How many put on masks every morning and pretended everything was fine? Skylar moved first. She knelt beside Jackson, pulled him against her chest. "I tried to help," she whispered. "I tried so hard, but you wouldn't let me in." "I couldn't," he sobbed. "If you knew how broken I was—" "I always knew," she said. "I've known since the first time I saw you washing blood off your hands in my bathroom. I stayed because I loved you, not despite the broken parts, but including them." More movement. Mason dropped down beside his best friend, then another football player, then a cheerleader, one by one. The crowd that had come to witness cruelty became a circle of unexpected support. "I've been on antidepressants since sophomore year," someone said. "I see a therapist every week." Another added, "I used to cut too. My sister attempted last spring. I think about it sometimes." The confessions came like dominoes, each admission making the next easier. The hallway that had been a battleground transformed into something else, a moment of collective vulnerability that nobody could have planned. Mrs. Rodriguez appeared then, having pushed through the crowd. She took in the scene, Jackson crying, me with my ripped skirt, the circle of students, Dante still streaming, and made a decision. "Everyone to the auditorium," she said, voice carrying authority. Now, what happened next made local news, then state news, then viral internet history. The whole school, all 1,200 students, crowded into the auditorium. Principal Morrison tried to speak, but Mrs. Rodriguez took the mic. "Enough," she said. "Enough pretending. Enough hiding. Enough letting our kids die in silence." She talked about Cameron Reeves, about the 3 other Westbrook students who'd attempted suicide in the past 2 years, about the waiting lists for counseling, the underfunded mental health resources, the culture of perfection that was literally killing children. Then she turned to Jackson and me, sitting in the front row. These two have shown more courage today than most of us show in a lifetime. They've shown us what happens when we stop hiding and start healing. Jackson stood on shaky legs. Someone had given him their hoodie to cover his arms, but he pushed the sleeves up, showing his scars to the entire school. "My name is Jackson Reeves," he said into the mic, "and I need help." The auditorium erupted not in mockery, but in applause. Real, sustained, thunderous applause, for admission of weakness, for vulnerability, for truth. I stood next to him. My name is Raven Fitzgerald. 2 years ago, I tried to end my life after being sexually assaulted. I got help. It saved me. And if sharing that helps even one person in this room, then everything that happened today was worth it. Dante had switched from live streaming to recording. Later, he'd edit together a video that would be shared millions of times. Not the cruel footage people expected, but something else, a document of transformation, of what happens when humanity breaks through the careful walls we build. The aftermath came in waves. First, the immediate Jackson was suspended for the assault, but not expelled. The condition was intensive therapy, which his parents, shocked into awareness, finally supported. The other students involved got lesser punishments. Community service focused on mental health awareness. I was offered the chance to press charges, but declined. Punishment wasn't what anyone needed. Healing was. Westbrook's mental health program got emergency funding. 3 new counselors were hired. Support groups started meeting. The waiting list disappeared. It wasn't perfect, but it was a start. Jackson lost his Stanford scholarship, but said it was a relief. I was going to play football because that's what golden boys do, he told me during one of our mediated sessions. I never asked myself what I wanted. What he wanted, it turned out, was to become a counselor himself. He started speaking at other schools about toxic masculinity and mental health. His story, our story, opened doors that had been locked for too long. Skylar and Jackson broke up, but remained close. I loved who he could be, she told me. But I can't be his only reason to stay alive. He needs to find his own reasons. Dante's video became part of a national conversation about teen mental health. He got offers from major tech companies but turned them down. I've got more important work here, he said, launching an app that connected struggling teens with resources and peer support. As for me, I stopped hiding, started a self-defense class for assault survivors, became a peer counselor, spoke at assemblies about breaking the silence. My dad, home from deployment, cried when he saw the video. You found your voice, he said, and you used it to help others find theirs. 6 months later, I stood before another assembly, not at Westbrook, but at a conference for educators, showing them our video, sharing our story. Everyone asks me if I forgive Jackson, I said to the audience. But that's the wrong question. The question is, can we forgive ourselves for creating a world where children have to bleed in secret, where strength is measured by how much pain you can hide, where asking for help is seen as weakness? I clicked to the last slide, a photo from Westbrook's first Mental Health Awareness Day. Jackson and I standing together, not as victim and bully, but as survivors, both scarred, both healing, both proof that sometimes the strongest thing you can do is let others see you break. We tell our kids to be strong, I concluded, but we never tell them that strength isn't about never falling. It's about having the courage to show your wounds and trust that others will help you heal. It's about learning that vulnerability isn't weakness. It's the only path to real connection. And connection, that's the only thing that saves us. The auditorium was silent. Then, like that day at Westbrook, the applause began. But this time, I saw something else in the audience tears. Recognition. Determination to do better. Because here's what I learned. We're all walking around with invisible wounds. Some of us cut our skin. Some of us cut others with our words. Some of us just cut ourselves off from feeling anything at all. But underneath the masks and armor, we're all the same scared kids trying to survive in a world that tells us pain is shameful and needing help makes us weak. That day in the hallway, when my skirt tore and my truth spilled out, I thought I was exposed at my most vulnerable. I was wrong. Vulnerability wasn't about what showed on the outside. It was about having the courage to reveal what we hide on the inside. And when we do, when we dare to show our real selves, we give others permission to do the same. Jackson taught me that. In trying to destroy me, he accidentally saved us both. Sometimes the people who hurt us most are just trying to find someone who understands their pain. And sometimes, if we're brave enough to see past our own hurt, we can help them find what they're really looking for, not a victim, but a witness. Not someone to break, but someone to break open with. That's the story I tell now, not just about the day the quiet girl's skirt got ripped in the hallway, but about what happened after, when two enemies discovered they were fighting the same battle, just on different fronts. When a school built on perfection learned to embrace imperfection. When vulnerability became the new strength. And if someone reads this who's fighting their own silent battle, know this: you're not weak. You're not broken beyond repair. You're just human, carrying more than you should have to carry alone, and you don't have to carry it alone anymore. The scars remain mine, Jackson's, all of ours. But scars aren't signs of weakness. They're proof of survival. They're our stories, written on our skin and souls, reminding us that we fought battles and lived to tell about them. And sometimes, telling is the most powerful thing we can do, because silence kills. But truth saves lives, even when it starts with a ripped skirt in a high school hallway. 3 years later, I got a text from an unknown number. "It's Jackson. I'm in the weight room, same spot. Can you come?" My heart stopped. We'd stayed in touch through group sessions and mental health events, but this felt different, urgent. I drove to Westbrook at 10 p.m., using my alumni access code to enter. The weight room hadn't changed. Same equipment, same dim emergency lights, same corner where everything began. But this time, Jackson wasn't alone. A boy sat beside him, maybe 15, trembling, sleeve rolled up, fresh cuts, angry against pale skin. "This is Marcus," Jackson said quietly. "My mentee. He's where I was." I understood immediately, sat down across from them, movements slow and deliberate. Marcus wouldn't meet my eyes, shame radiating from every angle of his hunched shoulders. "I told him our story," Jackson continued. "Told him how you found me here, how you saved my life with Band-Aids and silence. You saved your own life," I corrected. "I just reminded you it was worth saving." Marcus finally looked up. He said you'd understand. Said you've been where I am. I rolled up my sleeves, showing my old scars. Then Jackson did the same. 3 people in a dark corner, comparing battle wounds. "The thing about scars," I told Marcus, "is they only form on the living. The dead don't scar. So every mark on your arm is proof that you're still fighting, still here, still alive." "But it hurts so much," Marcus whispered. "I know," Jackson and I said in unison. Then Jackson added, "But I promise, I swear it gets better. Not perfect, not easy, but better." We sat with Marcus for 2 hours, called his parents, called Mrs. Rodriguez, who came despite the late hour, made sure he wasn't alone, made sure he knew that asking for help wasn't weakness but the first step toward strength. As we walked out together, Jackson stopped at the door. "You know what today is?" I shook my head. 5 years since Cameron died. I used to mark it with blood. Now I mark it by helping kids like Marcus. Because maybe if someone had sat with Cameron in his dark corner. He didn't finish. Didn't need to. We stood there in the doorway between dark and light. Two former enemies who'd become something more than friends. Survivors. Advocates. Proof that broken people could help each other heal. "Same time next year," I asked. "Every year," he promised. "Until no kid has to bleed alone in the dark." And we kept that promise.